Okay, I am now recording. And we are all going to start we're going to hit our play buttons at the same time on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Everybody's still there, right?
We're here.
Yep.
Here.
Just a lot of silence there at the end. So I was like, I hope I haven't been just speaking to nobody.
So excited.
That's a dream. Yeah, that's a dream. Definitely a dream. Maybe not a dream?
I'm loving your lonely commentary, John.
Gotta be a dream. Oh, definitely a dream. It was a dream.
Imagine if it wasn't, though, how great of a start as that season that would have been. John, Sherry just messaged me and said you made her jump. You just scared her.
Mary did?
No, Sherry.
Oh, Sherry. Sorry, Sherry.
I love Paris.
Refresh me, how long are they supposed to be there? Did they mention that?
This summer. This summer.
It's just a summer thing.
It's
Yeah.
6 weeks. I think they said 6 of last season.
Yeah.
6 weeks. Okay.
If you look at this address, it just says 2005 instead of a real zip code. I never noticed that.
That was a funny line.
What a great start to the season.
I love it. Your reactions were hilarious.
I love how we're all quiet.
I know that we couldn't really talk during that. We're like, you just have to watch.
I just can't believe you guessed it that
commentary.
quick. Did you guess just because of all the alarm clocks? Was that your first?
Yeah,
indication?
the moment
Like,
the alarm
they
clock, I was
showed-
like, that's
Yeah.
silly.
We had a conversation about this during like a post show that we were hoping you would not catch it was a dream.
Yep.
And just start freaking out about it.
Yep.
No, I mean, the alarm clocks all over the room.
That's actually happened.
But
to me,
the
like,
moment that I realized that it was truly a dream was when he gave her decaf. And I was like, this feels like a dream.
weirdly, someone's actually set off like 15 alarm clocks so I can wake up.
I feel like Rory might have done that, as a joke.
Oh my God, Senator Barbara Boxer is in this?
Yes,
There's like another congressman in there as well.
Here's my question.
I
Why
never
is
noticed
the
that.
fridge light off?
Because on set they can't have the fridge on because it interferes with the audio room tone.
Oh yeah, true.
Yep.
My bad.
Fun fact.
I don't know if it's the hiatus we took, but this is really exciting.
It's a hiatus. It got to me too.
Do we know if Taylor really got hurt in real life during this? If Michael Winters?
Yes,
he did. He did.
And so now someone put a banana peel on his doorstep.
I'm not loving that hat.
Did he call her Mini Me?
Yes.
Yep.
I love that dress she's wearing.
Same. It's one of my favorites.
I don't know if I would go with the hat, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into the hat.
She's good.
Is this guy a new team?
Not for Rory.
It's hard to say.
You will see, and that's
No
all we
comment.
will say.
Yeah, no comment. But it's just, yeah.
He played a mob guy on General Hospital.
Oh, this is a Paris love interest.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
There's just like plums on that centerpiece. Just plums.
There's some cherries on there.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I don't think I've ever seen a centerpiece with whole plums on it.
It's a very summer centerpiece. Poor Paris. I know. I love this Paris thing. Can I just say I love Rory's hair this season?
Just everything looks a little sharper. Like just the production quality of everything just feels like, I don't know, just a few notches elevated. So cool.
Right? For 2002.
This is a really good part.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about
Oh my
this.
gosh, yes.
Is Sean really like that in real life? Like, he's not, right?
Like, like a weirdo? No.
Like, he's not Turkish at all, right?
No, he is not.
Hey, is this dried grass?
That's a really good point. I'd never thought of before. Hay is dried grass.
I know, because we have cow pastures.
This is annoying.
You know what's funny is that this Thursday is the 3rd. Has anyone watched Halston with her in it? Yes.
Yes.
I was watching that today. She cusses. It was throwing me off.
Oh, wait, does she not know what happened?
Nope. Not yet.
No.
So how soon after is this? This would be like only a few weeks, right? Or a week, maybe?
I think it was
6
most
weeks.
of the summer.
6
I think it's a few months.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah, the summer.
They were
this summer.
vineyard.
Every single episode in this season absolutely slaps. It's amazing.
Totally agree.
She looks really pretty there.
Well, she does. She's wearing color.
Her hair looks really nice too.
Her hair is never down. It's always like pulled back in a very like tight ponytail or braid or something.
Anyone else catch that she didn't say love you back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so it begins again.
Did you say her makeup's not done? All
Also-
her makeup's on.
Also, Rory's style's gotten a lot better.
She's a senior in high school now.
So when I was a senior, oh, you do not want to see what I wore when I was a senior. So this is important.
That was interesting. I guess we'll have some discussion over that a
Oh.
little later.
Oh,
Her
yeah.
coat is amazing.
Oh, yes. I mean, I will say Jamie is cute.
Oh, my heart.
Wow, he seems really good for Paris.
I love watching Rory front Paris and Tara. It's such an intimate, like, girlfriend thing, and
They're
they're
just
friendly
sister
friends.
things. Definitely.
I like it too.
That was great. Also, wardrobe looks really different, but in a good way.
I was just thinking that how much
Less puppy dog shirts.
nicer. Yeah, no more puppy dog shirts.
Just feels like the show has more money.
She looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah, so nervous and uncomfortable.
Awkward.
Is there an airport in Hartford then? I'm guessing.
Was that an airport? I mean, I was a little. Looks so.
That might be a
there's a
soundstage, but there is an airport.
I also love that they have no money, yet she spent like probably a couple $100 on souvenirs at the airport.
That's so Lorelai, though.
Yeah, money is a real thing in this show unless they don't have it for something.
Exactly. I feel like as the show went on, like I feel like even their clothes and stuff got fancier the more they hung around with the elder Gilmores.
But also, Lorelai does get wealthier, right? As people continue in their jobs. Anyway.
Does Rory know about Christopher?
Yeah.
Did I miss that when she told her?
No. But like
Yeah.
you just can
It
tell
was just you
by
just
that.
assumed that she did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just by her saying like how long are you gonna freeze them out for testing.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was just surprised at on that line. I guess just meant to tell you that they have talked. Was Alexis in something Yaya, or is that something different?
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Oh, okay, definitely.
Yeah, but that didn't come out
Yeah,
until like 2
very
years later,
different.
though.
Yeah, yeah.
That
was
scene
in both
just
of
made
them?
me go, close the blinds, please. Ugh. Scares me.
Yeah, but Sister of the Traveling Pants didn't come out like for another 2 or 3 years.
Wasn't that from the Yaya Sisterhood movie?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Sisterhood. The other Sisterhood movie.
Yikes. Good Lord.
These two are rich.
Yeah, speaking of money.
That whole place looks terrifying.
And that's the scene from the intro. Prepare to have this song in your head for the next week, John.
Good Lord, that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, it's already
It's
in my
worse
head.
than Small World.
Oh no, It's a Small World will always be the most annoying song to get stuck in your head. That and Rebecca Black Friday. But
It's like he invented the slime or something.
oh boy.
I love Rory's shoes.
What about the bell bottoms? Can we make a mention of the bell bottoms?
Oh boy.
They were in, and aren't they back in? I would.
Oh boy.
I have a pair of flare
Oh boy.
pants.
Oh boy.
Skinny jeans forever.
This is one of my favorite festivals. And we have liftoff.
Who's that girl?
Exactly.
Exactly.
You'll see.
The whole thing is, who is that?
Does she have a team?
She's a skank.
Okay,
I would have said horse, but hey.
that's rude.
Sorry.
Slut shaming.
Oh, a kiss is always something.
Do you guys think that Lorelai is laying into Roy too much here?
A slight bit.
Yes,
Yeah,
and she
for
was
sure.
sleeping with her dad, who's
With Sherry?
with Sherry and getting her pregnant. And
I do think she's going
Rory
to.
is dating Dean, and if she's upset about Jeff kissing somebody else, then I agree with Lorelai. Just pick who you want to be with, but don't string Dean along.
I agree.
I agree to a point, but Lorelai really doesn't really have that much of a leg to stand on to go this far.
She's still her mom, though.
I mean, very true.
She's so
I'm with you on that, Rachel. I think it's sort of like she needs to be a little straight with somebody here.
Well, yeah, but she also needs to set a better example.
Yeah, but just because you make mistakes doesn't mean like it's okay for your child to make them.
Like mother, like daughter.
I think she's
How
trying
about Jared's elbow?
or don't make my same mistakes. Maybe
his arms look a little skinny.
He does look. He has like big old like white patch on his elbow.
He does have a really good tan though. Yeah, it does.
I
Yeah,
tan really well, and I have this weird little birthmark splotch on my elbow. It's just small. It's not as big as his. But my nephew has the exact same one, and it's weird.
I have one on my
Oh, interesting.
shoulder. It's weird.
Love this dress too. Brace yourself, John.
Oh boy.
Can any of you guys imagine Emily baking scones?
Can't imagine Emily doing anything in the kitchen.
Oh boy. I hate Emily in this moment, and I'll tell you why after.
I think she's disappointed though, and this is the first she's heard of it.
But wait, what she says. Ugh.
I think the problem here with Emily is she's just sort of jumping to conclusions.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't like her in this moment.
But Lorelai isn't saying much either.
That is true. Oh, now this is ugly from Emily.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I hate this so much.
That was rude. Ouch, damn.
John hit the nail on the head.
Damn, like, come on, people. Not you guys. Emily and Richard.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. They're still singing this song.
I love that.
Oh, is this the episode?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Do you guys think there's like a Taylor Dosey support
My
group
heart.
somewhere for people that are for trivia Taylor?
Oh, yeah. Can I join that group?
There are never any cars on that street, yet like every now and then they just park something there. It's hilarious.
I have a feeling I know how this scene's gonna end.
Just like,
I really don't think you do, John.
Nope.
Not her pregnant with twins.
Afterwards, I have a
John shoots. I don't remember that.
No, but he famously, I'll tell you afterwards. So flippin' sweet. And it makes me want a donut.
makes me want to lose.
That was really beautiful.
Luke is really the only person that she could get in that big of a fight with and then still have.
Yep.
Oh, that's where that reference came from.
Yep.
Lorelai's hair is great in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Season 3 is a favorite for both of their hair tones. I think she has naturally curly hair. They used to have to straighten her hair and then recurl it. I think that she says that in her book.
That's what I like to call masking.
Get back. That reference has never been more appropriate.
No kidding. So Dan Quayle famously, when Murphy Brown on like the TV show, when she decided to become a single mother, Dan Quayle, the vice president, complained about it, and he said it was indicative of like the moral downfall of America. And then everyone roasted him for it.
That's funny. I think I forgot something about that.
So, question real quick, because I wasn't able to watch the
Hold
last
on one
two.
sec. Hold on one second. Let me just open up the couch for for folks to come and join us. We have just opened up the couch to everyone. Please come on up. The couch has magically grown longer. Lots more cushions. Lots more spots for us to
Divulge.
gab.
Yeah. But what was your question?
So I wasn't able to watch the not the finale of season 2, but the 2 before it, the graduation and the one right before the graduation. They were still fighting over the Just thing, right? There wasn't like another thing after that.
No, they're still fighting.
Okay, I just want to make sure. It's been a minute since I've watched those episodes, so just double check. We're good.
So John, where do you want to start?
For real.
There's like 3 different major segments that we should talk about.
The hairbrushing scene, is that where you want to start, John?
The hairbrushing scene?
Where Rory was Paris's hair and talking about
Very much.
Sure, we can certainly start there if everyone would like.
Yeah.
oh,
John, you want to start?
I mean, I thought it was a really sweet scene. I love that Paris has a love interest. That they're kind of building that for her. I had no idea that character ever got a love interest, so that's kind of interesting. I fear that it doesn't last long, only because I never really got a sense that her character did while I was working on the show. So
wow.
But
So interesting.
well, just didn't really. I didn't have many scenes with her, but yeah. I mean, the hairbrushing scene was. I know why you're asking about the hairbrushing scene now.
Yep.
I'm like hairbrushing.
on.
I mean, she's brushing her hair.
Wow.
No. Yeah. I mean,
You know who she was talking about, right?
she's clearly like, yeah. of course. I mean, she's talking about the feelings that she currently has for Jess.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's I don't think that there's anything super surprising about that. I think that what she's doing is like kind of justifying to herself why the feelings that she has are, I mean, essentially what she's doing is she's just justifying to herself why the feelings that she has are valid, and so she's taking this idea of like the ideal partner, and she's just wrapping them into her specific feelings for Jess. If she was feeling something for somebody else, like she would probably wrap it up into that package for, in that discussion. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, I feel like if we didn't know what we know, like the 99% of us, and you're just going into this blind, you may think just because like, oh, she's with Dean, blah blah blah, that you would think that she was talking about him, but obviously we know a lot more than that. And I remember when I was first watching this years ago, and I was like at first I had that inkling that she was talking about Dean, and then that quickly dissolved, because like right when she was saying like trash the same movies and same music, I was like, trash the same movies, that is 100% Jess. And then when she got like super excited, she was going, but I don't know, it's like the idea of not knowing what someone's going to do at any moment. It's exciting. I was like, oh, she's so freaking smitten.
Well, I mean, to speak to what you said before, I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen with the characters, but it was very, very, very clear that she was talking about Jess. I mean, very clear. And it was clear that she was specifically avoiding talking about or comparing all of the things that she found interesting about Dean. And I think that, of course, she's got feelings for Jess. That's definitely pretty obvious at this stage, and especially when she comes back to town and she sees him there. But I thought that it was a moment where it was just sort of an insight, an interesting little moment of insight into just how Rory is she's a little shaken by her feelings for Jess right now.
I think another.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think another big thing of that whole scene is kind of the dynamic between Paris and Rory, because we saw Paris with I forget his name, the Chilton boy, and Tristan. We see how she's. Thank you, Tristan. And we see like a change in dynamic between that relationship with the two girls, and they're closer in this scene.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really like that Paris can be vulnerable with Rory, because we don't really see her in that way with other people. She's puts on a very strong personality and strong front. And with Rory, we've seen it like many times where she's, going on her first date, she doesn't know what to wear, and it's interesting that she can, like, they're rivals, but she's allowing herself to be vulnerable to her.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have any, like, just no sense for anything that's to come, obviously I have little bits of it. Like, I would sort of, at this point, really believe that, like, that Rory and Paris are going to become best friends, like, or very close to like best friends of the level of her and Lane. That's sort of how it feels like it's building right now. You're seeing like the Paris character letting her vulnerability out, and you're seeing her become more of a girl. And it just, I don't know, it feels like these two are going to become really, really, really close friends. That's why I still have that theory that
they're gonna both be in the same college together. And of course, I know that it's not Harvard.
Well, and I think they definitely help each other because Paris wanted Rory to be her vice president, so then that gets Rory to this DC summer, which will help her resume or her, college applications. And then Paris gets asked out, doesn't even notice it, and Rory's like, "Hey, by the way, you just got asked out." So I just love seeing how they complement each other and they're helping each other with different parts of their lives and kind of opening them to things that help them both where they're maybe a little closed off or just not as experienced.
Yeah, totally.
What you just said, Rachel, it just kind of reminds me of that relationship, that codependent relationship that Susie and Lorelai kind of have, where they kind of help bring out the strengths within each other. And it's kind of neat to see how Paris and Rory also do that. So yeah, I could see that. I think that was a good observation, Rachel.
I like I've always been like a big fan and very much supported the Paris and Rory friendship, just because I feel like Paris doesn't really have friends. She has like more like acquaintances, and I could even argue that, that Madame and Louise are more like acquaintances, and this really goes when she goes on the date with Tristan, and where Paris said like they're good for like the other parts of boys and stuff like that, but not like getting nervous and not throwing up 10 times before you get to the car type thing. And I think Rory is like the great balance of both, where she can give her advice on like boys and like liking someone, and then she can also give like the pep talk of like, you're going to be fine, just breathe type thing. And I feel like Paris really needs that, and I think Rory also needs Paris because she's kind of like a little neurotic, and she needs a little bit more craziness in her life. And so I very much like that whole interaction they had, because it kind of seemed like more than just friends, a little bit like more like sisters, because Paris doesn't have any siblings and Rory doesn't have any siblings, and so it's a good like sister moment. Yeah, I was just gonna, that's a really good point, Tasha. And this makes me think of something I was talking about, the very first remark I came to, which is like how people in communities and families and groups of other people fill in the role that's available to them, or that there's space for. This is kind of how like why there becomes this typical architecture of siblings, right? Like how the quote unquote first child acts, second child, third child. And then even deeper, like how your mom acts, what does it leave space for you to do? So one of the reasons that Rory and Paris's relationship is so beautiful to me is because they're opposites of each other, which is really fun to watch on stage, or on screen, excuse me. So it's like Rory is the quiet, quote unquote, timid, like patient thinker, and Paris is the brash, aggressive, loud, as wonderful as she is, character. And that's how they balance each other.
So I have a question for the group as far as the dream that we saw in the beginning. Do you think that Lorelai was dreaming, like if you're going to do a whole dream analysis, do you think that it was stemming from her feelings of Luke or from Christopher?
Both.
Yeah.
50-50.
I think probably 50-50. I think a huge part of that is Luke. I thought that scene was going to actually involve a kiss. That's why I said I have a feeling I know where this scene is going. That was my guess, was that there was going to be a very surprise and clumsy kiss.
You mean at the end when she's mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I assumed when she walked in. Once the scene started going, and I started to like get into the actual monologue, and you see her emotions and all of that. Then I at that point I knew that it wasn't coming. But I sort of had this feeling coming into the scene that we were only minutes away from the end of the show, and there event and the episode, and I was just waiting for that big moment to happen. I was sort of guessing that would sort of bring the dream full circle, that she would realize that she does have feelings for Luke.
Can we talk about what their conversation is too, or really just Lorelai's monologue about the whole package and all of that? And it's kind of interesting that she's confiding in Luke about, this other man and this other life she could have had, and like,
oh, that almost made me cry.
He seems fine with it in that sense, like as a friend, he's just listening to her. But I always think about this scene and that monologue of hers and like what that means, and where she fancies herself Wonder Woman, and it's sort of like, I don't know, for me it's really interesting that she's in between two worlds of like marriage and family, or single mom who's like just badass, like, and she admits here that she wants it all, and I think that's really, really touching and hard to do.
Especially since she says it to Luke himself, that she wants something, because she always is kind of solitary. Even in her own relationship with Max, she was very much solitary, and the same thing with Christopher. So when she's talking to Luke about it, it's to me, especially since they hadn't spoken for a couple of months, it's very telling.
And she's just come from a dinner where she listened to her father say that she walked out on her chance to have a family. Right.
Yeah, I was about to ask about the parent scene.
If I can kind of combine Diana's question to the dinner of Emily and Richard, could I do that very briefly?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with her little monologue at the end, it kind of like hits me each time. I mean, I'm still young. I'm 28, and I still have like so much time to like have a family and have that whole package and everything. But considering where I live in Utah, where it's very common for women to start having children and get married right in your early to mid 20s, more so in the early 20s. And so coming from a state where like careers are more the importance, and women don't really start having families until like later in life and stuff like that, it didn't really hit me too much until I was like maybe 5-6 years deep into Utah, and then I was like, wait a minute, am I crazy? Am I gonna have it? Am I gonna have it eventually? And this is at like 24, 25, and yeah, I was crazy to think that. And then I kind of thought to myself, am I gonna have, like, I want that whole package, like white picket fence and having that person to come home to, blah blah blah. And then I kind of like thought to myself, like, I am gonna have that, maybe not like that soon, but I will have that type thing. And then so that whole monologue kind of hits me and really makes me tear up, because it's like every person, regardless of like where you are in your life and how content you are with your standing and your happiness and how good you love your life, you, like, a woman or man wants that whole package, regardless of when that may be or not. And then that kind of ties into the whole Emily and Richard. And I made this comment a while ago, but I made a comment on a TikTok video about that scene where Emily's like, I want a solid adult reason why blah, blah, blah. And I said that I get why Emily's upset, and I get why she wants an actual reason of why they're not together, because beforehand there wasn't really a good reason other than like, oh, like I got scared, or oh, like he just asked me to marry him right out of the blue type thing. I get why she's upset, because she wants her daughter, as much as it may not seem, she wants her daughter to have it all, with Christopher obviously, but just to have it all in general. But at the same time, I feel like it's also a generation type issue, because Emily and Richard's generation grew up where there was a mother, a daughter, well, a mother,
the father and the child, and that's all they know. And I think that's why she's upset, because that's all she knew. And now in modern times, quote unquote, 2002, that's not always the case. Like, there's also single parents, and there's like different ways to have a family and still have it all type thing. And that's where I get annoyed, because just because Christopher's not in the picture in that way doesn't mean that she can't have a family and she can't be successful and all that. And that's where I really hate Emily and Richard, is because they don't understand that. And I get why, but at the same time, they have to pull themselves out of their own generation and what they know and realize that that's not Lorelai, and she's going to do what she's going to do.
I think that Emily just wanted that for Lorelai, and she thinks that's what Lorelai wants, so she's upset that Lorelai's not getting that, and that she thinks that Christopher should pick Lorelai over some woman he doesn't know as well. He's going to stick to a family. I mean, of course, she's a traditionalist, and she would have liked them to be together the whole time, but I think in this instance, in this case, once she realizes that it wasn't Lorelai's fault that they're not together, she's upset for Lorelai and wants that for Lorelai and thinks that's what Lorelai wants. And that's why she's so upset. Richard's upset because it brings up bad feelings from the past for him, and he just kind of doesn't know how to deal with that stuff. At least that's how I see it.
I'm with you, Chris.
Yeah, and notice how Lorelai just walks away and they don't even notice, because it's not about it. At the end of the day, it isn't even really about her and what she wants. It's about them and how it looks on them. And you know, that it's also like, you know, we all kind of groaned when Richard immediately says, well, Christopher would always do the right thing. And it's like, well, we've seen Christopher consistently do the wrong thing. And so it's definitely grating. But like, she gets up and leaves, and like they don't even notice that she leaves.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say that this is like the first time, I think, like even John has had moments where he's like, most of the time, like you're kind of iffy on whether Emily's actually like being mean or she's just being like Emily, and you kind of are thinking, you know, Lorelai is just acting like still like a rebellious teen. I think this is the first time, for me anyway, where there's just 100% no question, like you feel bad for Lorelai, like she hasn't done anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah,
Like,
totally.
Emily
That's how I
yeah,
felt. That scene. I mean, at the beginning of the scene, I felt like I felt like I could kind of understand why they would be excited. Like, they don't know. Emily doesn't know, and so of course, why wouldn't she be? I do think, you know, that Lorelai could have done a better job of sharing that with them and sharing it with them earlier. But when she does share it with her, Emily's reaction is just awful. It's just awful.
Well, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like where Lorelai just went off on Rory. So that you kind of see like that parallel. Like, I know it's different situations, but they both kind of like overreact. You know what I mean? Like an overreaction. And, yeah.
Mary, you want to say something?
Yeah, because I wasn't on the couch, and I actually was very surprised at how people reacted when Lorelai went off on Rory. Lorelai went off on Rory because Rory is treating Dean the way Christopher treated Lorelai. Christopher has and he keeps coming back
Totally.
to play with Lorelai's feelings. And so she's like, make up your mind. If you want to be with Sherry, be with Sherry, but stop coming back to me. And so, like, she's telling Rory, I know how that feels. If you're going to be playing with Dean like that, I know how it feels. Either make up your mind, go with Dean, go with Jess. So I actually think she was completely justified in her reaction.
Agreed.
And I think she was right.
Yep.
I didn't get that.
Yeah,
like
totally
that,
agree.
you mentioning that now, Mary, I mean, it's like an epiphany. That's absolutely what was going on. I just had this gut sense that Rory was, or that Lorelai was right in that moment. I couldn't really put my finger on why it made sense, other than the obvious that, like, you know, you got to make a decision here. You know, you're toying with somebody's emotions, but now in that context, I mean, that's absolutely it. And it's so interesting, you know, like she really could have just like subbed Sherry and Sherry and herself in for Dean and Jess in that moment.
I just wanted to, sorry, can I just say real quick, I also think Lorelai should have told her parents, if not the same day that happened at the end of the night at the wedding or before they left for out of town, that maybe they wouldn't have had such a horrible reaction like that, because she pretty much just didn't tell them and they thought the whole time they were gone, she and Christopher were together. And
I feel like she was still like, I mean, anything like that with that type of news, you need like a day or so to let it set in. I mean, obviously she didn't need 6 weeks, but like
them.
Well, yes, but like that same day, it's like when someone has something traumatic happen or something, like someone drops a bomb on them, you kind of need some time to like let that soak in and process your own feelings, because sometimes in the heat of the moment or when something's so fresh, you kind of don't know what you're saying. And I totally understand why Lorelai might not have told them that day or even a few days before they left. Granted, she didn't need to take
that's like Lorelai too, because that's what she does. She avoids. She runs away.
Yeah, that's why.
Well, like I said, she didn't need to take 6 weeks, but if she would have told them like a couple days after, that would have been totally fine, because you need.
But she wasn't in the wrong at all. She could have told them that same night that Christopher all of a sudden just left to go back to the girlfriend because she was pregnant. Nothing. Lorelai did nothing wrong in that situation, and I think part of their reaction is that they thought they were together the whole time, and then they just revert back to this like anger that they had. But anyway,
yeah, that's
Emily would still. I am done with that topic myself.
Emily would still have found a way to tell Lorelai, you should have done more.
Yep, I agree. She would have told her that night, go get him, go bring him back. I think it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
Something I noticed was when Emily was like talking to Lorelai about, you could have had a family, whatever. She's like, I want to know why my granddaughter and her mother can't, and not I don't know why my daughter can't. She never, once in that conversation, referred to Lorelai as her daughter.
Oh, in general,
anything
when Emily will be speaking, it's always my granddaughter and this is Lorelai and my granddaughter. She always does stuff like that. I forgot what my other point is, so I'm gonna go. Bye.
I think the whole like referring to her as the mother is trying to like highlight the point that you're the mom, you're the parent in this situation.
Can I just throw in here too that like Christopher is still sneaking around, right? Like, why is he calling Lorelai and leaving voicemails over and over again? It seems like, right?
Well, yeah, but Rory's talking to him, and I think he thinks if I make things right with Lorelai, then Rory will stop freezing me out. So I think
that's sort of how I interpreted it as well. I didn't get a sense that he's like trying to get back with Lorelai. I thought that it was much more about Rory. Although like it seems like that part is a little, I don't know. I found that part a little weird. The fact that Rory is sort of like solidarity with her mom there. There was something about that didn't sit right with me.
Well, I think with that, like, I mean, Rory was just as hurt as well, because like when they were talking at the end of the wedding, right before she talked with Jess, like and this goes back to a lot of what we said in season 2, where it's like Rory's has always wanted her mother and her father to be together. And I think every child who's had a situation like that where their parents aren't together, no matter how old you get, you've always wanted your parents to be together in the end. That's just how it is. And I feel like Rory's just as hurt. I don't think it's not because of like she's just going along with what her mother feels. She was hurt too, because when they were talking, she was saying like, because we've wanted this for so long and we take rejection like very seriously type thing, because like it's her father and she loves her father.
I know, but he's not rejecting them. He still wants to be a part of Rory's life very badly. I mean, like, and Rory's a very smart person. She can understand that like he's now has a potential, she has a potential sibling on the way and whatnot. It just, something about it just didn't feel right. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe somebody else has better insight, but
and we can't say too much because of what is to come. So
but that's fine.
Well, no, I was gonna say, I think it has to do with the suddenness. It was such an about shift. One day they're talking and saying, you know, are you around? Is this for real? Are you gonna stay? And he's like, yes, kiddo, I'm here. And literally at the end of the day, he runs away because Sherry's pregnant. Like there was no time to actually talk to her and discuss anything with her. So it feels like another letdown. It feels like another lie. It feels like another claim of I can buy you whatever you want, but actually I don't have the money, or my business is doing great, but actually it isn't. It's just one more thing that Christopher adds. And for Rory, I think it's just too much. It's too quick and too much.
And Christopher didn't even tell him. He didn't even tell her himself. Remember, he said to Lorelai, "You'll tell Rory, right?" And she said, "Of course."
Well, that's true. That actually makes the most sense, because I still don't really totally. I just think that there's a huge difference between a lie about how much money you make and how well your business is, and saying that you really truly want to be there for you, and then something massive like an asteroid style impact on your life changes it. I think that you might be sad about it, but it seems odd to sort of be like freezing somebody out on something like that, because it doesn't feel like it's in the same category as lying about your finances or lying about what they're, because it actually doesn't even feel like a lie. I think that he actually was totally sincere when he said, I want to be in your life. You've got it. This is what's going to be happening. And that he just couldn't have imagined that he was going to be getting that call. Now, the idea that he would just sort of like hand that over to Lorelai to tell Rory, that I can process. That sounds like something that he could have done a lot more on, and I could imagine Rory being pissed about that, or at the very least allowing that to justify her just general hurt feelings about the whole situation. Yeah. T, did you want to say?
Yeah. To connect what Richard was saying as far as like the emotional availability of Lorelai at that dinner scene when they were having drinks, he was kind of suggesting that Christopher would have gone in pursuit of, having this family with Lorelai and with Rory had Lorelai actually been open to pursuing it. But do you think that based on her monologue theme of what she was expressing in connection to what he was saying there, do you think that Lorelai is emotionally available to have a relationship with Christopher, with or without Sherry in the present?
That is a really good point. I think the answer is no.
Yeah, let's remember she hasn't been dating that long. She started dating in 2 years ago maybe, because she never dated because she was so focused on Rory. So to me, this episode has always been like a head scratcher, because she says, well, I want the whole package. And it's like, you've met like two men. You had that date with the college kid or the business class. You had Max, which I get she was engaged, but he just wasn't the right person. And I just feel like she's just like a little impatient when it comes, but you have to find the right person. And she's only been dating for like 2 years in her whole adult life. And so, yeah, well, I don't think she's ready for a relationship right now. I think she wants one, but I just think she has a lot of growing to do until she can handle one.
I remember when in season 1, when she first started dating Max, she was saying how Rory never said anybody's name. It would be like the patch guy, the mustache guy, the one-legged guy. You like pirates. So it's not that she didn't date. She just didn't bring them home really, because she didn't have them in Rory's life. But she dated.
Bingo.
Tiffany?
I just want to say, as a parent, looking at that scene, how is Lorelai supposed to be emotionally ready? She goes to her parents, vulnerable in a really upsetting situation, and they treat her that way. And, to get any comfort, she has to go to, Luke, somebody else. She's at, this vulnerable moment, and they just, step down even harder on her, instead of saying, oh my God, that must be terrible for you. How are you doing with this? It was like all of their expectations. So I don't think that she would be able to be emotionally, available with that situation, how she grew up. Like she's had to kind of teach herself and just kind of learn.
Or find outside sources.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of their fault that she's not really emotionally able to do these things, I think.
I'm gonna
Gotcha.
take a low. Cool. So that's perfectly well said, because I feel like I'm relating this a lot to my life because, well, Tiffany's. But that makes so much sense because and Lorelai made a joke of it, and when her and Rory were in the airport, where she's like, I've missed you or something like that, and Lorelai's like, oh, that's my emotion. Oh, Rory said, I'm never leaving home again, and then Lorelai's like, that's my emotionally stunted girl. And then later in that episode, I mean, I don't know how much of that tied in with each other, but with what Tiffany was saying and how Lorelai didn't really have a good emotional support system growing up and didn't really have like anybody to go to, she was emotionally stunted. Like she may be a 32, 33-year-old woman, but emotionally she's still that teenager that just wants to have the emotional support from her parents. And I feel like no matter how good of a parent, like parents Emily and Richard are, they're very cold. Like they can be warm and you see it spurts here and there. And they're a lot more warmer to Rory than anybody else because that's their grandchild, but they're just very cold and they've never been that kind of support person for Lorelai. So I feel like that's the reason why Lorelai is the way she is because she doesn't have anybody else but outside sources to kind of not validate her, but make her like to just dump on. And
I gotta disagree with that though, because, and I'm gonna say the unpopular opinion here, and for those who can't see the bottom of the screen, this is Chris.
Go ahead.
Emily and Richard might make it hard for Lorelai in a way because they are very different in the way they deal with their emotions. But at the same time, Lorelai doesn't try to maintain or build any kind of relationship in that way with them or to repair anything as an adult. She still acts like a 16-year-old kid. She doesn't tell them things. She takes a long time to tell them things, and she gets upset when they react. She doesn't, if she's learned other ways to deal with stuff, she should take those tools and apply them to her relationship with her parents, but she really doesn't do that. She just blames them for things. And then when they start yelling and get upset, she leaves, or she doesn't try to like talk things through with them. I mean, it's just, I feel like everybody always wants to just blame them, but she is part of that relationship with them as well. And she doesn't try to actually do a whole lot to make things better. She just assumes that they're always going to be against her. And so she avoids or waits till she can't avoid anymore to say things. And
I'm with you on that for sure, Chris. That really speaks to how I feel in general about the relationship between Lorelai and Emily, really. But also Richard, really, her and her parents. And it's why, like, while as absolutely horrible as that scene felt, for Lorelai in that moment, somebody mentioned, that they couldn't imagine how Emily wouldn't have said the same thing no matter how soon she had told her. And I agree with that. Lorelai had told her that same day that what happened to Christopher, Emily would have probably done something like that. I would have been like, you got to go grab him. And, it would have been that way. But that's because that's how their relationship is right now. If Lorelai were to, just sort of tear down some of those walls that she has up in regards to how she reacts to her mother, it's not like it will change overnight, but perhaps over time it would change to a place where she would get more trust and more respect from her parents. It's not going to happen instantly, for sure. But I do think that the reason why it does happen more often than not is because of how poor both of them have, how poor of a job both have done at really kind of finding a relationship. The only difference is Emily really wants to find a relationship, and Lorelai always seems to not want to find the relationship. So at the very least, even if they're both terrible at it, at the very least, it's hard for me to get behind the one who's like constantly pushing it away, and then the one who is at least trying, even if she's doing a poor job.
Go, Diana.
I feel the exact same way, and the thing that I've come to realize more recently is that Lorelai benefits from sort of the awareness of the fact that her parents have a very rigid view on, you know, cultural norms and how society works, and she doesn't have any empathy for that. Like she doesn't have any empathy for the fact that they actually don't know that they have other choices. Like she does know that, and so that's why she leaves. But she doesn't have any empathy for the fact that Emily is trying to love her and connect with her and her parents actually really do want what they think is the best for her, according to how they've been taught by their society to parent and to provide. And Lorelai benefits from the sort of those, I guess, rose-colored glasses being torn off. Like she knows that that's not the end-all be-all is the way that they live. She knows that there's another way, and she also knows that they don't know that. So like it's kind of like she's a little bit mean about it. Like she's like almost, I mean, she is really kind of superior, you know, where she's just like, ugh, they just don't get it. And she doesn't actually have a conversation with them ever to say like, you know, like I really appreciate what you've tried to do because you're parenting in the best way you know how. But I need to come and tell you that like there's this whole other world out here outside of your little society that is more appealing to me in the sense that I have more choices, and I really wish, Mom, that you had more choices too. You know, like that's the kind of thing that I almost wish she would say, but she doesn't. She just kind of looks down on them, but they're just doing the best they can. They're just doing what they know to do.
Yeah, totally.
Shirley, you wanted to say something?
I think T might have been flashing, but I might have imagined that.
I noticed Shelley, I noticed Tiffany, and well,
I was too.
I think
and you were, but I assumed that you were.
Just to, I can just throw one quick point in here and then leave it to the next person. When Lorelai, I just have this flashback to when Lorelai is talking to her dad in his study after Christopher has come to dinner with Christopher's parents, right? And he says sometimes there are things that need to be done no matter how you feel about them. I'm butchering with the paraphrase, right? And she goes, I feel unbelievably sad for you right now, Dad. And he says, save your emotions, Lorelai. I've had enough of them for tonight, you know? But I think that I agree with everything everyone's been saying about like, when does trying help? You know, when can things change slowly over time and who's not trying? But I also think that sometimes Lorelai does try to show them that there's more to life than the reality they have.
Exactly. I think like, and sorry, I'm like kind of comparing it to like my own life, but I can't help it. But with what someone was saying about how they're just doing the best they can on how to parent and stuff like that, and how Lorelai hasn't really tried to like have like a relationship type thing with them. I feel like when you try, I think maybe she tried when she was younger to have a relationship with Emily and Richard, and anytime that she would go to them with something, they would just dump all over her and kind of be like, no, you're wrong, this is how it's supposed to be, yada yada yada. I think like there's only so much that you can give so much you can take before you can't take it anymore. Like I don't have a relationship with my mother for many reasons, and one of the many reasons is because every time something either good happens in my life or something bad happens in my life, I go to my mother, and she in some way always tries to always gets mad at something. She'll take something so good and then flip it and make it so bad. And I think that's kind of what Lorelai had to go through, where she would try to go to her parents for some sort of support, or go to them for whatever, and they would just dump all over her and get mad at her. So I understand why Lorelai kind of stopped doing that. And I mean, that led to what the relationships is now, big, but it's kind of a give and take type situation. Lorelai could have given a little bit more, and Emily and Richard could have kind of understood where she was coming from a little bit more. So I think both of them could have made this relationship work a lot better than it is right now if they would have at a earlier date realized that okay, this is my daughter and this is how she's going to do things, and I'm her parent. I also need to kind of learn how to parent a little bit better type thing. And I mean, I don't know if this is making any sense, but that's just how it feels. But I see everybody's point though.
Tiffany?
Well, actually, I think T was before me.
T. Sorry,
Oh, no.
you're lower on the screen, so I didn't see you flashing.
That's okay. I actually, there was something that Diana said that spurred something on that I remembered. But if Shelley and Tiffany have something else that they felt that they wanted to continue on with this one, I can ask my question after that.
Yeah, mine was just really quick. I was just going to say, one of the things was, as far as Lorelai and her time frame for telling, I think, if she's reeling from this and she knows she's not going to get support from her parents and it's going to be another battle, I could see her trying to just kind of get the strength to go and talk to them and deal with that follow later. She's got too much on her plate. And I also just wanted to see what people thought about Emily sticking up for her with Richard. This is another incident that we've seen. She can be really nasty to Lorelai, but whenever Richard starts to pile on Lorelai, it's interesting to see how it turns and tell him knock it off. So I was wondering what other people thought about that.
I think at the core of everything that Emily truly loves her family, diehard loves her family, and that she sometimes has a different approach than what people would like to see, or what Lorelai might need in that moment. But going on to the whole referring to the granddaughter, I think that having a child myself, I mean, we make a joke about it with my siblings and I of we're top liver if the granddaughter's in the room, you know what I mean, or if she's on the call or something like that, that that's grandpa has eyes for her, So I think that yeah, she just has a different approach about it, but she's in all, Emily really does love her daughter.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tia. I think she genuinely loves Lorelai, even though she doesn't always handle things well. But
yeah, and I get that there's a lot of history here, but I also don't know why Lorelai gives them so much power. It's almost like she still needs their approval, or all those things that were said. I don't know. I just don't know why she lets them have so much power over her and her life decisions.
I think she just reverts back to that teenage self, the one who ran away with Rory when she was a baby, and she just can't be adult Lorelai in that moment. That's how I feel about it sometimes. She just can't. It's just she can't get there, and so she just lets them kind of do that. It's unfortunate.
And it's also, I think that it's easier for her to just back out of the situation than have to fight over and over again saying the same thing until you blow in the face.
But it's part of the reason they have the kind of relationship they have, because she's not trying to change it.
Absolutely.
I agree, Chris.
T, did you want to say something that was on a different topic? I'm actually going to be heading out here in a couple minutes, but if there was any other Any other topics that we wanted to discuss in the episode before I head out? Would love to hear.
Yeah, it's actually just a general question because Diana, she was bringing up the, you know, community, social norms and stuff like that, and it just kind of like reminded me of that moment where Emily was expecting Lorelai to call her when she came back into town. And I know, like, customarily I'll call people to let them know, like, hey, I've touched base, you know, I've landed safely, things like that. But I've never heard of the practice where people are expected to like have phone calls when they land. You know what I mean? Like, not the reverse. Is that something that is like normal practice? That
Wait, so
that was really.
I think
refresh me on how it goes. That they.
She landed, like Emily and Richard had gone on vacation, and she went into town. She came back home, and so she was expecting Lorelai to make the phone call to Emily and Richard, and she's like, "Hey, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Why haven't you called me yet?"
Oh, right. Yeah. I actually think that was. I think that was. I don't know. I interpreted it as like kind of a joke because of what you said. That it's typically the other way around. Usually.
Oh no, it wasn't a joke.
I think it's Emily's excuse to have a reason to call Lorelai.
Oh no, I don't mean Sherry. I don't mean that it was a joke that Emily was making. I thought that it was just a humorous bit of writing.
Gotcha.
Because that's typically exactly what you said. See, it's the opposite. You know but that only Emily would make it the way that she did.
Right, especially since Lorelai's saying you didn't even tell me what time you were due in. How do I know to call you at that time if I don't have a schedule?
It's sort of like I interpret it as sort of a play on that very common bit of etiquette that that family members do, that when they go somewhere they always call when they arrive to let you know that it's safe, that they're okay, whereas Emily would never do that. She would always expect people to call her to make sure she's okay, which I don't think that exists. I think that was just
I only do that
writing.
I only do that when I've told people that like, oh, like I'm gonna arrive. Like when I went to New York a couple years ago, I told my sister, they're like, hey, I'm coming in at this time, I'll call you. Or my two best friends, I'd be like, yeah, I'm landing here, I'll call you when I land, type thing. So it's like only people that like need to know.
It's the people who actually do the traveling that typically do the calling, because they it's like my sister when she comes to visit me, and she's in Vegas and then she drives back to Vegas. I always say to her, let me know when you get home, because I want to know that you got home safely. I would never it would be weird for her to be upset that I didn't call her when she got home, because I have no idea when she's going to get home.
Exactly. I think Emily uses
but that was the joke, I think.
To call Lorelai, though. I think part of that is they're making a joke out of the situation, but I think also Emily uses any reason she can to call Lorelai just because she wants to talk to Lorelai, whether Lorelai wants to talk to her.
True.
Or not.
She was avoiding her parents too, so we knew that she wasn't going to call her parents because she's hoping to avoid them and not see them, because then she doesn't have to tell them
of Christopher stuff.
Yep. And one of the really interesting things that I think has come up subtly over this post discussion is like how different kinds of people show love, right? Like, what does Emily's love to Lorelai look like? And what does Lorelai's love to her parents look like to Rory? What is Christopher's love to Rory? And like, it's like Emily calling and harassing Lorelai. What does Paris's love look like to Rory, right? It's like, help me right now, I'm freaking out and panicking. It's just very interesting to me.
Good point.
Yeah, because somebody just recently said, I can't remember who, I think it was Chris, said like that Emily just loves her family so much. And I thought, yeah, it's interesting. I never think about that, because it's sort of, I always sort of interpret it as Emily wants to control her family so much, but
I think to Emily, love is control.
Yeah, I was going to say that, that is part of love for some people, because ultimately, like, love is a feeling. What you do with those feelings is what sort of makes you the person you are. It's like what you, like you said, Jasmine, so what you do with that love. Emily has this intense love for her family that then manifests itself in the form of needing to control, right? There's some people who that love manifests itself in the form of a fear of loss, right? A good example being the Dean character, right? And like how he behaves, which at times is very unsavory, comes from a deeper love that he has for this person, so that's a really interesting perspective. Like, how do all of these people, how do they show their love, and also, like, how do they show their love at different times? Because, like, how Dean is showing his love now, given that there is another person that is there also vying for Rory's love, is very different than how he would potentially show his love, if those weren't the circumstances, if he didn't think that he could potentially lose this love.
Mary,
Can I just,
flashing?
I was just going to say that culturally, there is precedent for what Emily was saying. Like, if you come from, like, in Egypt, people go to the countryside, it's their summer vacation, and the people who are expecting them call them to welcome them in or welcome them back. So there is a little bit of, like, that expectation of, like, you knew that I was coming back into town and you want to call me up and check up on me and ask me how my vacation was and all of that. So
right.
Yeah,
right.
I always read it that way, that Emily absolutely did expect Lorelai to call, because but I think the way it's written is really interesting, because it's a nod to the audience to say, look at this person, look how ridiculous her expectations are, and, like, we're supposed to be on Lorelai's side. I think as a viewer, we're supposed to be like, oh my God, Emily, of course, like, you want this ridiculous thing that no one seems to do, that, like, anyone, like, I don't know anyone who does that, but, like, also just, like, not even telling her when, like, what time to call, like, that sort of sets her up for failure. And so, like, we as the viewer are always challenged to see Emily as setting Lorelai up for failure. Like, nothing she can do is ever right. And so I think I always thought that was, like, very real. But I also think it's really interesting that Lorelai at the end of the conversation just goes, I'm sorry, and she just, like, moves on, and, like, gives Emily what she obviously wants, which is an apology.
Well,
Yeah.
I think she expects it, because I think she would have done it, like, where she wrote down, like, well, wait a minute, I have, that Rory's supposed to be back on this day. Like, she's written it down.
Yeah.
So I think she expects it, because she would do the same.
Yeah, because she did. She was like, Rory's supposed to be back. Like, I'm expecting Rory. Like, we wrote it down. Like, we know when she's coming. How is this wrong? Like, we don't get details wrong like that, So,
Exactly.
yeah.
But just to throw in another layer here, right? I don't think that Emily was on her way home thinking, I'm going to get home, I'm going to have the driver bring in my suitcases, then I'm going to go check my messages and get a nice little message from Lorelai welcoming us back. I think Emily is in the car home going, watch, I'm going to get home and Lorelai isn't even going to have called me. And then she gets home and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is why she comes off so holier than thou, or, like, on her high horse, or that kind of thing. But I agree. I'm with you.
It's a general insecurity that Emily has about whether her daughter likes her, ultimately.
And I think Lorelai loves her mother. I just think that she just can't be controlled.
She loves her mother, but she doesn't like her mother.
Right.
Like, she wouldn't be her mother's friend. And I think that her mother wants that. Even though, in the last season, and There's the Rub, that was sort of Lorelai's big argument, that, like, I'm best friends with my daughter, and and we aren't friends. I think that Emily wants that, but but in order for it to happen, it has to be on Lorelai's terms. We got to be the type of friends that are my friends, not the kind of friends that you want. And that, I think that's just really hard for Emily, because I don't think Emily would ever know how to be the kind of friend that Lorelai wants. I think she tried a little bit there that night, and it didn't turn out that well.
Funny, John, I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say that Emily wants to be Lorelai's friend, but isn't willing to figure out how. She just wants it to magically happen.
Fair. That's fair.
Oh,
That's fair. I can accept that too.
And the irony too, though, if you remember from A Tisket, a Tasket, when Luke and Lorelai were sitting on the bench and sharing his picnic, then she was saying, like, I'm okay with everything, or I'm perfectly flexible as long as everything goes the way that I want.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she has that same similar trait to her mother, but it's like going back to what Jasmine was saying about like the different types of roles and characters, and that they clash, because they're too similar. Jennifer, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thanks. It's such a small example in this episode, but I feel like relates to all these things we're talking about. It's just when Emily gives Lorelai the scone mix, and it's obviously like something that's not like we know Lorelai doesn't bake. It's not something that's personalized to her, but she's so or I don't know if defense is the right word, but it's like Lorelai's not gonna. She doesn't just say thank you. She kind of reacts in the opposite way as she did on the phone, where she's like decides to not pick that battle and just apologize and move on. Instead, she's like really sarcastic, and I thought really rude about it. And she could have just acknowledged that her mother gave her a gift, but it wasn't like, it's like they're just not meeting each other where the other one is, I guess.
Shauna, I want to respond to that, but I want to let Shauna go first, because then I'm gonna jump off after. Shauna?
Well, I've been sitting here listening to you guys. I'm like, okay, taking consideration of the fact that it was taking a lot out of Lorelai to go to her parents and tell them about Christopher, about what was happening. And I've been in the same situations, similar situations, where I didn't want to be distracted from what I needed to say. And her giving her that bag of scones mix was like a distraction for Lorelai. Like, I was getting ready to say it, but then you do this, and well, maybe, and I'm gonna back out. I'm gonna back out saying anything, and then finally she was like, "Look, I have to say it," and that's kind of where it kind of get that angst. She gets that angst look in her face, like, "Oh, I just have, I have to get this out," So maybe she would have reacted to the scone thing differently if it was in a different scene.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah,
Because
that
how
makes
is
sense.
somebody supposed to know that Lorelai had some big news to drop?
Yeah, but I think that's part of the writing. That's part of what makes the scene really great, is that you've got this like sort of clashing of two circumstances, different circumstances, a misinterpretation of what's going on. My thing about the scone thing is that, maybe I was the only one, but I thought it was an odd gift for Emily to even give. Like,
Absolutely.
talk about like Lorelai doesn't bake scones. Like, Emily doesn't do any sort of baking either. Like, I almost got the sense that Emily thought that that's something that Lorelai would like, and that it wasn't the typical Emily gift that like Lorelai would just be like, what the hell am I going to do with this? That Emily was actually trying and just got it wrong, because there was nothing about a scone mix that struck me as Emily.
Yeah, definitely.
But maybe she thought the simplicity of it would actually be something Lorelai could do because she does, really basic.
Yeah, it's like a. I mean, look, she knows that Lorelai gets coffee every day at at a diner. I mean, she might be thinking like, oh, scones go really well with coffee. I mean, they do. So in my mind, I thought it was actually kind of a considerate gift. Not that difficult to make scones out of a scone mix.
Kind of going back to, sorry, I want to make this point before John hops off, but going back to the point with the distraction of the scone mix and Lorelai wanting to say something, but the scone mix kind of made that a little bit more antsy and a little bit more annoying. She did say that she wanted to say something at the door, right when she got in the door, and then Emily was like, no, things don't get said at doorways, come outside. And so Lorelai wanted to say something from the moment she got in the door, but Emily kind of told her in a way, no, you have to tell me outside type thing. So Lorelai wanted to say it since the moment she walked in the door. So everything from that point kind of irritated it and made it that much more painful because, I mean, it would have been painful wherever she would have said it. But I feel like the way that Lorelai said it wouldn't have been how she did it if she would have just said it, would have been allowed to say it at the door. But
Could it be
I mean, it's just that
because she waited so long to tell them?
Yeah,
And
so
she
I
knew
think
it was
it's
gonna
just I think it's just the circumstances, the mistakes that were made. It just all makes for really good conflict in the scene. I don't think that anyone was necessarily at fault. In terms of when did she say it? Should she have said it first? And what? I just think that the big parts of that scene that stood out to me was Emily's reaction. And then, just this larger conversation of is all of this mess that they have, this is a real mess of a relationship. Is it largely because of Emily's inability to connect with her daughter? Or is it Lorelai's inability to try and make some headway with her parents rather than constantly shutting them out.
Right.
And the answer to that, I think, is what causes these little problems to occur, right? Them not getting to the heart of that is why, Lorelai walks in the door and completely oblivious to Emily. She just wants her to come outside and tell her the really great news outside. She doesn't think that there's anything wrong, and she doesn't think she's controlling Lorelai in any way. It's just that it just happens to be that there's just really awful news that Lorelai hasn't told her, and Lorelai's inability to tell her right there is largely just wrapped up in that terrible, dysfunctional relationship that they have.
Yeah, and 100%, Lorelai's totally oblivious to what Emily's asking her to do. But it's funny because I never thought of it, but the scones are absolutely a metaphor for their entire relationship. Emily just wants to share with her daughter. She just wants to include her on the great trip that they took and the great things that they ate. And wouldn't that be great to share it with her? Because, Lorelai and Rory have a great sharing relationship. Maybe this is maybe that's her olive branch.
And they love food.
Exactly. Yeah. She's like, oh, food, great. And you're right. Maybe it's oh, they pick us a coffee. Oh, it's easy. I mean, I've definitely done that where you're on a trip and you're this is delicious. I'm going to bring this to my friend who would never ever bake it, and Lorelai sees the whole thing as another example of how much her mother doesn't get her and doesn't listen to her and doesn't know her. And that's personally insulting to her. And so, it's just the gesture is totally lost because Emily is saying a ton with the scones, and Lorelai is getting the entirely wrong message. She's getting almost the opposite message.
Except that she did pick it up and take it with her when she left.
Yeah. True.
On that note, all of that's really fantastic. I can't wait to dive into the next episode, see where all of this is going. We never got a chance to talk about Jackson and Suki, but we'll probably have more opportunity as the season progresses. I will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. for episode 2. Thank you, everyone, again, for joining me.
Thanks, John.
This was a really big room today. I think this was our biggest group that we've had so far. This community is growing. It's growing a little faster than I thought that it would, to be honest.
It was such a baby before.
Which is really very, very exciting. It will bring its challenges as it grows. We will have to figure out, things like, couches and making sure all of the new folks who join us feel welcomed and comfortable to speak. I was very exciting. Is Elaine still here? Oh no, Elaine is gone. But it was really cool to see somebody new up here on the couch. I always can see the new people because I always follow everyone who comes onto the couch. And so I always check to see if there's anybody who I'm not following. And that always signals to me that it's somebody new. And it was kind of exciting to have somebody new on the couch and to hear them speaking. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that, and we should be encouraging it because
sharing is caring.
Because sharing is caring.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes, definitely.
All right, everyone. I will see you tomorrow, or I will hear you tomorrow.
Have a great night.
Thanks, John.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, John.
Bye.
Bye, guys.